Okay, welcome to the online lecture again. This is the nature ecosystem. On Wednesday, we talk about the introduction of the ecosystem. We will continue the second part in the online lecture. In an ecosystem, we know on Wednesday we briefly talked about they have the abiotic and biotic component. The abiotic component basically are the part that are non-living. Non-living such as sunlight, inorganic nutrients, soil, water, temperature, and wind, all the physical stuff. The biotic component, they are the living organism of different species. Those are the biotic components. So in other words, human being, we are part of the biotic component of the ecosystems. Well, we categorize the biotic components into according to their food source. First one is the autotroph. Autotroph means a self-feeder. Why is that? Because they can produce their own food. Most of the autotroph, they are called producer because they can produce their own food. And of course, we know that green plant, they can do photosynthesis to make glucose. And algae, they are also the same, they can carry out photosynthesis. Heterotroph means other feeder. They feed on others because they cannot make their own food. Mainly, they cannot do photosynthesis. They are also called consumer because they feed on others. Consumer, there are three types: herbivore, carnivore, and omnivore. You probably already know this term. Herbivore, they eat plants or algae. Carnivore, they eat other animal. Omnivore, they eat both. So we human beings, we are omnivore, we eat both. It has something to do with our teeth. One example is that our molars, we have special types of teeth. Basically we have both types of teeth for the herbivore and carnivore, and especially in the molar, we have one more so-called cusp, or one more protrusion in the molar. The one more cusp in the molar, it will improve the grinding of the molar so that we can eat a variety of different types of food. So it's an evolutionary advantages for human being to develop a molar that has one more cusp so that we can eat different types of food. Decomposer. I briefly mentioned about decomposer on Wednesday lecture, and detritus. So decomposer, they should be classified under heterotroph. Decomposer, because they eat other stuff, they cannot make their own food. Specifically, decomposer, they refer to bacteria and fungi. Namely, example, molds and mushrooms. They break down non-living organic matter. Well, yes and no. Yes, because when we talk about decomposer, of course they eat non-living organic matters. What happens is that after they eat the non-organic matters, the main purpose of the decomposer is to return the non-living organic matter back to the earth as an inorganic matter so that the producer can absorb those nutrients back as a cycle. So that's the main reason we must have decomposer. Otherwise, the producer and the consumers will deplete the resources of the earth pretty quickly. it is the decomposer that so-called decay or break down the dead body of plants and animals so that the nutrient can return or go back to the earth. When I said yes or no for breaking down a non-living organism, the reason is that bacteria and fungi, they actually break down living organic matter as well. Think about what we talk about parasitism. On Wednesday, when we talk about athlete food is basically fungi breaking down living organic matter in between our toes. Then we call it athlete foods. Or fungal nail. Fungal nail is basically where fungi breaking down the living organic matter in our nails. And that is called fungal nails. And then detritus or bacteria. Bacteria, on Wednesday lecture, we have a strep throat. The bacteria that causes strep throat. So it is a bacteria breaking down living organic matter in our throat that causes strep throat. That's why we need to take antibiotic. And then detritus. Detritus, decomposed matter in water and or soil. Detritus is not bacteria and fungi, but it is also one type of decomposer. It is a one-type decomposer specifically for organism, multicellular organism, like earthworms and some beetles, termites, maggots, or we call all of them detritivores. So other than bacteria and fungi, we have these kind of insects or living organisms to help to break down, to decompose organic matters. So here are the examples. You can see producers. This is blue-green algae, or blue-green algae. You can also call it cyanobacteria. This is just plant. So both cyanobacteria or blue-green algae, they can do photosynthesis to make food. So we call them autotroph, or specifically producer. And then for herbivores, okay, they eat plants, like the caterpillar or rabbit or hare. Okay, sea carnivore, okay, they are the consumer. So both herbivore and carnivore, we are consumer. And also the composer are also consumers. Carnivore eat other animal, eat other carnivore, or carnivore eat other herbivore, or eat other carnivore. For decomposer, we have bacteria and fungi. It didn't show the detritus here. Now energy flow. When we talk about decomposer, I told you that we need decomposer so that the resources or the nutrient on our earth can recycle. We need that. The main reason that we have energy flow and chemical cycling on the earth. The energy flow, basically, the ultimate resources of energy on our planet is from the sun. So the energy coming from the sun is being converted or go from one organism to the next organism. And then chemical cycling is that when the producer takes in the inorganic nutrient from the earth, it will pass to the different, let's say, the consumer, the herbivore. And then when carnivore eat the herbivore, then the nutrient will pass from the herbivore to the carnivore, so on and so forth. So all this, the chemical cycling, is basically using the earth resources and then distribute it into our ecosystem. So this is an example. Let's take a look at the energy first. Our sun is the ultimate source of energy, and then the producer is the one that is able to trap or or collect this solar energy and convert them into food. And we consumer, like the herbivore, when they eat the plant, the producer, they basically absorb the energy from the producer. And then after this, other carnivore, when you eat the herbivore, you will also absorb the energy from the herbivore. But you can see that in even the producer, they will have some energy loss as heat. Similarly, for consumer, they also have energy loss as heat, meaning that the herbivore will, when it eats the producer, it gets the energy, but it also has some heat loss from the herbivore. So when the carnivore eats the herbivore, you will collect less energy because some of the energy is already lost to the heat. And when this carnivore is being, and this carnivore also has heat loss from the body, so when this carnivore is being eaten by other carnivore will actually collect less heat, less energy by eating just one animal. And ultimately, the decomposer, when they break down the dead body of these animals, they will actually get even less energy. And they themselves will also lose heat as well. The reason they are so small, bacteria and fungi, they're so small because they get the least amount of energy from breaking down the dead in the non-living organic matter. Because by the time they get a chance to decompose or break down these inorganic non-living inorganic matters, the energy that left in the body is already very little. That's why it can only support a small life form. And then when they are dead, of course, they will release their inorganic matter into the soil, into the earth, and then we can recycle all this stuff. That's why for rabbit, they don't need to, they eat the plant. That's why there are many vegetarian. One of the theory of being a vegetarian is that they're eating the producer. So they collect the most energy from them. When we eat meat, eating the consumer, we actually get less energy. So that's one of the theory those vegetarians like to propose. And then we talk about nutrient. If you look at the nutrient, the gray arrow, you can see that it is actually in a cycle. There's no exit. What do I mean by exit? If you look at the energy, there is exit. The heat loss, and there's no the energy. There's no return to the sun. It's only losing. So we have the origin is the sun, and then we have different loose ending. But for nutrients, somehow you see that it is a cycle. There's no loose ending. There's no exit. Why is that? It's the same reason that I told you before. All the nutrients are limited to the biosphere. Whatever our Earth has, that is all the nutrients that we have. So what happens is that we just cycle or recycle all the nutrients on the earth through the producer, consumer, decomposer, and on our earth again and again. That's all we have. What happens is that we have too many consumers, meaning that we have too many human beings, and we consume too much producer. That means we destroy our forestation. Then you can see that the energy flow not only will disturb the energy flow, but also the nutrient flow will also be disturbed. And that's the whole topic about environmental protection or conservation, because we are destroying the cycling of energy and also the cycling of the nutrient on the earth. And because of that, we call that pollution. And it can destroy our earth, now you can see why. If the nutrient cannot recycle, that means it will accumulate in one of those, When it cannot recycle, then other, let's say, producer or consumer, they may not get enough of the nutrient because nutrient may be accumulated in certain area. Then in this case, it will cause the extinction of animal or plants. The energy must also be balanced. For example, for regular cellular respiration, we can lose heat to the environment. For the normal growth and reproduction, we can lose energy to the carnivore because a carnivore can eat this herbivore. And then the death of this animal or excretion or defecation of this will return the nutrient to the, will give energy to detritus or decomposer. And then in this case, it will return the nutrient back to the earth. Energy flow, I don't quite like the organization of the textbook because they talk about food web first. Theoretically, we should talk about food chain first because a food web is basically composed of a multiple food chain. When we have multiple food chain together, then we form food web. But somehow they talk about food web, well, first. So we have grazing food web. Basically, it's a tree and forest. We talk about the tree and forest and other herbivore and stuff. This is a grazing food chain. So caterpillar feed on the leaves. Mice, rabbit, deer, the herbivore, they also feed on the leaves. And then birds, chipmunks, mice, they eat fruits and nuts. But they are omnivore because they also eat caterpillars. Herbivore and omnivore, they provide food for the carnivores. Well, carnivore, we eat everything. Not only we eat herbivores and carnivore eat herbivore and omnivore. They don't eat the producer or the autotroph. We have detrital food webs. Detrital food web, as the name suggested, it consists of a detritus. So these earthworm and beetles, they can be fed by salamanders, shrews, or other carnivores. So the detrital food web and the grazing food web, they are jointed because the member of one food web may be the member of the other food of the grazing food web. So they are interconnected. So this is what I meant on Wednesday lecture. The prey and predator's relationship is complicated. If you are feeding on something, you may become the food of another animal as well. That's why these two food webs, they are interconnected. So you can see the one on top there, the grazing food web, and then the one on the bottom is the detritus food web. Trophic level. So now they talk about food chain. They talk about food web first, and then they talk about food chain. For grazing food chain, you can start with the leaves, which is the producer, caterpillar, which is the herbivore, or we can call it primary consumer. And then tree birds that eat caterpillar. Tree bird will be the tree bird is actually an omnivore, or you can call it a herbivore. You can call it omnivore or herbivore. Birds should be both omnivore. Yeah, bird. Some bird they eat fruit. Some bird they eat fruit. So yeah, some bird eat fruit, so they are omnivore. So some bird eat fruit, some bird eat caterpillar, and then hawk eat small birds. So this will be omnivore, this will be carnivore, this will be secondary consumer, this will be tertiary consumer. detrital food chain, detritus, earthworm, and then shrews. And then we have primary producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer. I already go through this, and then ecological pyramid. So the food chain you can have the loss of energy between each trophic level. What is trophic levels? I didn't talk about trophic. So each of these we call it trophic level. So this is the producer, one trophic level. Second trophic level is the primary consumer, which is the herbivore. And then the third trophic level will be this omnivore, tree birds. And then the fourth trophic level will be the carnivore, hogs. So there will be energy loss in between each trophic level. And then approximately about 10% of the energy of the trophic level will be consumed by the next trophic level. So the energy loss is a lot. Most of the energy is lost to heat. Only 10% of the energy can be transferred to the next level. It explains why only few carnivores can be supported in the food web. The higher you are in the food chain, the fewer number that animal you can find, because they can only, although they can eat a lot of different stuff, but they require a lot of energy as well, and only 10% of the energy can be transferred to each trophic level, and that's why they may not have enough energy for the carnivore on the top of the food chain to support the entire population. That's why the population of the carnivore on top of the food chain is usually very small. So we can look at those ecological pyramid to see the energy loss. You can see that, so producers, they have a lot of energy because they absorb the sunlight. They absorb the sunlight and the solar energy directly. And then you can transfer approximately 10% of the energy from producer to the herbivores, and then another 10% of the energy from herbivore into a carnivore, and then 10% of the energy from carnivore to the top carnivores. So that's why the energy is losing, on each trophic level. And that's why the vegetarian, they like to eat producer because they have the most amount of energy. Biomass. Other than energy pyramid, you can look at the biomass as well. Definition of biomass. Biomass is the number of organisms at each level multiplied by their weight. It gives us a very good reason here. Why do we use biomass instead of, let's say, the number of organisms? The reason is that you have one oak tree. One oak tree may have 100 caterpillars, but which one, the oak tree or caterpillar, has more mass? Of course, one oak tree has a lot more mass than, 11 caterpillars, or 100 caterpillars. So that's why using biomass is more accurate than the number of organisms. The biomass of autotroph is much greater than that of the herbivores. Of course, we need to have a lot of autotroph in order to support the needs of the herbivores and also the needs of the carnivore. But as I mentioned previously, what we are doing right now, we are destroying the forestation. We are removing. We are diminishing the biomass of autotroph, which is not good, because when the biomass of autotroph is decreasing, then the herbivores may not have enough food or resources for them to survive. Then the herbivore biomass will also decrease. When herbivore biomass decrease, what will happen? The carnivore biomass will also decrease, so on and so forth. Eventually, human population will also decrease. And what happened ultimately is that there will be extinction of species of human being and also other species as well. So if human beings continue to destroy or not just destroy, but to decrease, if we continue to decrease the biomass of the autotroph, then we are basically leading to our own extinction. So for aquatic system, we will have something called inverted pyramid. The reason is that it is very similar. That so they also have producer and herbivore, but the herbivore actually has greater biomass than producer in this case. The main reason is that the algae, even though they reproduce, but they are consumed rapidly by the herbivore in the sea, in the ocean. That causes the inverted triangle, which is also not good. The reason is that majority of the photosynthesis, believe it or not, is not produced on the ground. Majority of the photosynthesis is carried out in the ocean. So if the ocean algae is diminishing or decreasing in the biomass, which is also not a good sign for our planet. Biochemical cycles. Well, we will talk about different cycles at the end of today's lecture, but we need to talk about different terms. Reservoir, they are the resources that is, well, unavailable. This is counterintuitive. Reservoir is something that is unavailable to producer or other animals. The exchange pool is where living organisms can take the resources from. For example, atmosphere, soil, or ocean. Biotic community. Biotic community is basically food chains and all the living organisms. So these three, why do we need to know their definition? You can take a look. For the community, community with producer, consumer, and decomposer, ideally these three characters, the producer, consumer, and decomposer, they should form an equilibrium cycle. The cycle should be in so-called in harmony. That would be an ideal case. But then where can we get all those nutrients? We can get all the nutrients from the exchange pool only. Atmosphere, soil, and water. We cannot get the nutrient from the reservoir. And reservoir because reservoir and the community cannot directly get the energy from fossil fuel, from rocks, from the sediment. In order for the community to extract all the nutrients on the earth, namely fossil fuel, mineral, and sediments, we need to have this exchange pool. The exchange pool is like it can extract the nutrient from the reservoir and to make it available for the community to use. So this is like the one that is that is also very important. But this is also the one that we human beings like to pollute or destroy. We like to pollute the water, pollute the soil, and pollute the atmosphere. And we mess up a lot of the exchange pool. When we mess up the exchange pool, what will happen? The exchange pool, it would diminish or decrease the capacity for the exchange pool to extract the nutrient from the earth, that means from the reservoir. When the exchange pool is being polluted or being destroyed, and then the exchange pool has a lower capacity to extract the nutrient from the earth, then that means the community will have less available nutrient. When it happens, then it will decrease the number of producers, consumers, and decomposers. So that's why not only we have to keep the producer, we have to protect the producer, but also we have to protect the exchange pool. Yeah, so that to ensure that the flow of the nutrient and energy or this biogeochemical cycle can continue. Anything that disturbs this cycle will be disastrous. So we have two types of biogeochemical cycle: gaseous cycle, as the name suggested. It is the chemical element going in between the atmosphere, from the earth to the atmosphere. Let's say carbon and nitrogen cycle. In the carbon cycle, we have carbon dioxide, which can go to the atmosphere. Nitrogen cycle, of course, we have nitrogen gas that is in the atmosphere. Sedimentary cycle. Sedimentary cycle is basically definition is here. A chemical element drawn from the soil by the plant root, and then so on and so forth. So it starts with the nutrient on the earth, and then through the producer, then the producer of the plant can extract those nutrients from the earth to provide the consumer, herbivore and then carnivore, and then it is returned to the soil by the decomposer, which we will talk about it in the phosphorus cycle as well. Water is an exception because water exists in all three forms: gas, liquid, and soil. And water, they also have water cycle that we will talk about. Now this is what I meant. We'll talk about the water cycle or hydrologic cycle. So it's very, I would say, very straightforward because when water evaporates, it changes to liquid to gas. And then when water evaporates, the salt in the water is distilled, meaning that the water that is converting into water vapor through evaporation, they are usually free of this salt. And we can extract salt in this way as well. Evaporation of water, usually by sunlight, the ultimate source of energy. And then condensation is that converting the water vapor into liquid. So it says that the evaporation of the water from the ocean usually return to the earth as precipitation. Precipitation meaning it's raining. So not just water evaporated from the ocean, it can also evaporate from land, plants, or fresh body of water. Because you know that gravity, so water always flow from high altitude to low altitude. So in this case, if the land receives rain, then the rain is gonna return to the ocean. So water on the land is usually by standing water, flowing water, or groundwater. Precipitation, they're basically rain, but it also includes snow, hail, fog, or sleet. groundwater table or groundwater table or water table. There's saturation, state of saturation zone. And then aquifers. Aquifers is a rock layer that contains groundwater. So the wells or springs, they're basically from the aquifers. Aquifer can be recharged when we have precipitation or snow melting. Florida, this is a good example. We human beings like to, we enjoy destroying our Earth. Well, one of the ways to destroy our Earth is that in Florida, they like to have this something called groundwater mining. They just keep collecting groundwater from the aquifers. In this case, the aquifer storage will be depleted faster than it is being replenished. So it's like economy. You learn the input and output, or the demand and supply. The demand is faster than supply for the aquifer. So what will happen? The groundwater may be depleted within a few years. Not only that, threshold is 3%. Yeah, and it is possible to run out of fresh water, especially if we also enjoy to pollute water. If we pollute the aquifer, then it will no longer be usable. So try not to dump too many things on the ground. It's not like, on the ground will absorb it and cleanse it by itself. No, it's not that ideal. Yeah, if you have any chemical, let's say liquid detergent or bleach, do not just pour it on the ground. So bring it to a recycling center. Hopefully they'll figure out what to do. So this is the brief depiction of the water cycle that we talked about. So most of the water, they evaporate from the ocean. Precipitation is the rain return the water to the ocean. And we can have evaporation from the lake, the groundwater, and also from the plants and animals that we have, that water from our body can also be evaporated to the atmosphere. And then this is what we call aquifer, which is the water storage in between the level of the rocks. So this is the part that is easily polluted. And what can you imagine what will happen if we remove too much of the aquifer as water mining? If we overdo the water mining, actually it will cause the surface of the ground to go down, which is not good. If we build a house on top of it in Florida, then your house may actually sink. So before we talk about phosphorus cycle, let's stop here.